Chapter 2388, Carve Up. Published by Divine.Tao Library. Translator, Salavan and Rykov. Translation checker, Pew Pew Lasergun. Editor and proofreader, Leo of Zion Mountain and Dale Ligerkeys. Several screams rang out as the two cultivators of the city lord's mansion were killed instantly, but Yu Leping wasn't faring much better either. Being enveloped by Chen Fei's sword wave, he could not break out even if he tried with all his might, and the injuries on his body just kept on increasing. A silhouette suddenly flashed over as Yang Kai appeared behind him and threw a punch out. Yu Leping was already having a hard time in this situation, so how could he defend himself from Yang Kai's sneak attack? The punch hit him square in the back, and as the powerful force ran through him, Yu Leping spat out a mouthful of blood. His body was propelled by a huge force and he was pushed a few steps forward. Chen Fei arrived with his sword and with a swing, sent Yu Leping's head flying. Blood immediately gushed out of the headless corpse like a fountain. The next moment, Chen Fei reached out to grab Yu Leping's space ring. Earlier, Yu Leping said he would give Yang Kai 1,000,000 source crystals, which meant that he was very rich. Once he was dead, Yu Leping's space ring would naturally become a hot commodity. But before Chen Fei could get his hands on it, Yang Kai suddenly bellowed, "Brother Chen. What are you trying to do?" While speaking, he had already sent a fist flying towards Chen Fei with great force. Chen Fei frowned and didn't want to be held back fighting him, so he slightly moved aside to avoid the blow, but his hand was still aiming for the space ring. But at that moment, a sky-splitting sound suddenly emerged, followed by a verdant-colored shadow wrapping around Yu Leping's wrist. While Chen Fei was trying to grab the ring, the verdant-colored shadow lunged at him like an arrow, accompanied by a hissing sound. Only then did Chen Fei see that the verdant shadow was actually a bamboo-like venomous snake. He withdrew his hand out of shock and worry that he would be bitten. The green snake was extremely nimble, but when it saw Chen Fei withdraw his hand, it did not pursue him. Instead, it curled around Yu Leping's hand and took the space ring with it before its body straightened up and it bounced back towards Xilan. Yang Kai and Chen Fei both landed on the ground, looking at Xilan with grim faces. While the two were fighting each other earlier, Xilan was able to reap the benefits, which naturally put a bad taste in both their mouths. Man Kuai seemed the slowest to react. Only now did he come back to his senses and was eyeing the ring in Xilan's hand. "Three brothers, why are you staring at me like that? It's like you want to eat me up. So scary." While speaking, Xilan slipped the space ring into her bosom. Chen Fei brandished his sword at Xilan. "If you dare do anything funny, don't blame me for being disrespectful." "What do you mean?" Xilan smiled, but she didn't dare to continue, clenching the space ring in her jade white hand as she scoffed. "You know exactly what I mean." Chen Fei coldly snorted and turned to look at Man Kuai. "Brother Man, that ring may contain 1,000,000 source crystals in it. What do you think about this situation?" Man Kuai grinned meaningfully. "Naturally, ill-gotten gains should be split up amongst us." Yang Kai looked at Chen Fei in astonishment and expressed his dissatisfaction. "Why didn't you ask me?" Chen Fei said, "How could Brother Yang be interested in a meager 1,000,000 source crystals?" This comment was clearly made to mock what Yang Kai said to Yu Leping earlier. "Of course I'm interested. I'm very poor," Yang Kai said with a serious face despite having no actual interest in the source crystals. However, he simply could not show it at the moment, otherwise, he may cause these people on the ship to become suspicious of him. For someone to be indifferent in front of 1,000,000 source crystals, anyone would start to have guesses. Yang Kai called out, "You have to count me in on this matter. Don't be so selfish." Chen Fei frowned. He knew he definitely wouldn't be able to get rid of Yang Kai since he exchanged blows with him earlier and could tell that Yang Kai's ability was not inferior to his own. Considering this, he could only say, "Xilan, you aren't thinking of taking on all three of us alone, are you? If you're sensible, then you should know what to do." Xilan gritted her teeth with a look of hatred, but when she saw Man Kuai and the other men eyeing her like predators, she knew she couldn't monopolize Yu Leping's space ring. If she did so, she would definitely incur everyone's ire. Even though Xilan's abilities were not weak, she did not have the confidence to take on both Chen Fei and Man Kuai at the same time. What's more, she still hadn't figured out how strong this smelly brat called Yang Kai was yet. "Take it." Xilan tossed the space ring to Chen Fei out of anger and put on an aggrieved expression. "All you know is how to bully weak women." If anyone who did not know the situation saw her teary face, they would definitely feel compassion for her and hate Yang Kai and the others for bullying her. This time, Yang Kai did not intercept the ring and allowed Chen Fei to grab it. In the next moment, Chen Fai's divine sense poured out, apparently breaking the seal on the ring. After a while, Yang Kai and the others all stretched out their necks and looked over with greedy looks on their faces. In just a short while, Chen Fei revealed a happy expression. They all immediately knew he had broken the seal. How much is in there? Man Kuai asked impatiently. Chen Fei also seemed a little excited, and hearing this, he simply responded, "See for yourselves." Saying so, he placed down a mid-grade spirit purifying array with a wave of his hand on the deck, and then he poured everything out from the ring. All of a sudden, the deck was piled up high with a mountain of source crystals that almost blinded Shilan and the others. They had no idea how much was here exactly, but there were at least 1 million there from the looks of it. Yu Leping really wasn't kidding when he said he had 1 million source crystals. His cultivation was not much different from Shilan and the others, but he lived a free and easy life. He had so many source crystals that he couldn't even spend them all. Meanwhile, Shilan and the others had to work hard out at sea every time, and the supplies they gained were only barely enough to cover their own use. The comparison between him and Shilan and the others was a little imbalanced. How abominable. Can a petty little steward from the city lord's mansion scavenge so much money from the people? Simply heartless. May he be punished by the heavens. Yang Kai cursed through clenched teeth. These words resonated with Shilan and the others. Indeed, Yu Leping was merely a steward in the city lord's mansion, but he actually amassed such a huge fortune. What about the others who were in higher positions than him? They must have more wealth than Yu Leping, right? Let's divide this up first. Man Kuai licked his lips and said with an excited expression. How many shares? Shilan asked. Just the 4 of us. Who else do you want to share with? Man Kuai replied matter-of-factly. Chen Fei and Yang Kai looked at each other, but neither of them said anything. Then let's split it up. Shilan also made up her mind and waved her hand. Then, the 4 of them split up the contents of Yu Leping's ring equally. Each of their faces was beaming as if they had just picked up a great bargain. Nearly 20 cultivators from the city lord's mansion died during this trip. Apart from Yu Leping's space ring, there were, naturally, other spoils as well. However, they didn't find too many good things in the rings of these people. Except for the 2 third-order Dao Source Realm cultivators that had survived with Yu Leping till the end, the rest of the cultivators only had a few hundred source crystals in their rings each. The poorer ones only had several dozen. It was pitiful how poor they were. The 2 third-order Dao Source Realm cultivators' space rings did have some good stuff in him, but the combined worth was only less than 1/10 of what Yu Leping had, so Yang Kai and the others swiftly divided the gains up. After about half a cup of tea's time later, a figure suddenly appeared above the sea. The figure flew straight over to this side and quickly landed on the deck. It was Sangda who had gone off on a chase. From the looks of it, he was clearly able to kill off all the escaping men. Grandmaster, what do we do with this ship? Shilan looked at the moored ship with some interest and asked. If you want it, you can refine it, Sangda responded indifferently. Shilan was overjoyed and was about to fly over when Sangda said, "We'll keep going." Shilan's face went dark, but she didn't dare to argue with Sangda. A short while later, the ship continued sailing forward. To the surprise of Shilan and the others, Sangda did not ask about the spoils of the battle after returning as if he had forgotten all about them, but this was also something they expected. If Sangda wanted a share for himself, then Shilan and the others would not be able to refuse him. But Yang Kai knew that Sangda did not forget, he just didn't care. This guy had been refining artifacts on Clear Sky Island for 900 years, and his hands had practically gone soft from the amount of money he had been receiving. In terms of wealth, even 10 Yu Lepings may not be able to compare to him. How could these trivial spoils of war be able to interest him? Instead of arguing with Shilan and the others, he may as well just act ignorant. After a fierce battle, Shilan and the others seemed to have gotten a little tired and all went into the cabin to rest and meditate. Yang Kai was not tired, but he couldn't just act like the odd one out either, so he also went into his own room and closed his eyes to meditate. Days passed. Sangda's destination seemed to be extremely far from Clear Sky Island. The ship had already sailed for half a month, but they had still not arrived at their destination. During this period of time, everyone took turns to rest and control the direction of the ship, so things were safe and peaceful. The occasional attacks by sea beasts were also uneventful. Sangda's ship seemed to be of a very high grade, and even though it was not quite a Emperor artifact, it was definitely at the peak of the Dao Source grade. Even when those huge sea beasts crashed over, they couldn't leave a single dent on the ship. But that would come as no surprise. Sangda himself was a peak Dao source-grade artifact refiner. How could he not take care in refining his own artifacts? This ship was not only strong, but also had many spirit arrays and barriers arranged on it. For example, the force that prevented Yu Le Ping and the others from flying, and the light curtain barrier were some of the functions of this ship. Yang Kai even suspected that Sangda had left his soul imprint on this ship's core, allowing him to dominate everything that happened on it. No movement could hide from his perception on board. If he wanted to deal with Xilan and the others, it most likely was not going to be very difficult. But Sangda would not do that as long as he wasn't insane. He still needed the help of the people on this ship to grab whatever item he was after. On a certain day, Yang Kai, who was meditating in his cabin, suddenly noticed the ship shaking violently before it stopped rapidly. Raising his brow, Yang Kai realized that they had probably arrived at their destination, so he quickly came out from the cabin.